Are you worried about your dyslexic kid losing academic skills over the summer? We have some creative tips to help you out. Hey everyone, we're Nick and Sonia, and this is Dyslexia Journey, where we help you support the dyslexic kid in your life. And today we want to talk about, how kids can lose some of their academic skills over the summer, which, I think we've all heard about in general, but we might be very concerned about with our dyslexic kids and dyslexic students. And, on the other hand, they need a break just like anyone else, and we don't necessarily want to spend all summer doing academic things. So we want to share with you some ideas for how we can still be really intentional about this and still keep summer really fun and interesting.
Okay, so jumping right in, our first tip is actually to let your dyslexic kid relax and have a break and enjoy the summer. I think that the number one most important thing is that they can be rejuvenated and refreshed and able to approach school again in the fall with a fresh, open and engaged attitude.
Yeah, and so I would say if there is a more academic kind of thing that they're doing over the summer in order to help them, perhaps, with the dyslexia, really making sure there's still a lot of time that is more unstructured for them.
Yeah, and we've discussed on other episodes how dyslexic kids, especially, the need perhaps more downtime than other kids because it requires so much intense focus and concentration for them to do the reading and writing tasks that non-dyslexic people kind of take for granted. So it's even more important that they get these breaks and this downtime in a very unstructured way, like Sonia was saying.
Right, and of course that's just helpful for socio-emotional reasons, but it's also, even from the academic perspective, like you really don't want them burnt out as they're starting the new school year. So tip number 2 is to see if your local library has a summer reading program. So this is probably feels most directly related to actually, encouraging them to read. But we've found that, maybe not every kid will take to it, but for our daughter, she really did. And a lot of it was the way it was structured. It was very, it has fun rewards, of course. There's raffles at the end and you get little prizes along the way. So that's motivating. But it also, at least at our library, was structured such that it was more about like reading 10 minutes a day. So it was very much structured in a nice way where it wasn't necessarily about completing a book. And so that can be especially helpful. I think for a dyslexic kid to feel like it's not taking all day, but it's just, regularly doing it was the focus.
Yeah, and I think for our daughter, I think it provided some structure and just sort of a reminder to sit down and read for 10 or 15 minutes every day, which actually for several summers, that really has motivated her to get through some books on her own.
Yeah, and then sometimes there's even a writing challenge or like a writing contest, and again, it'll be probably vary depending on what your kid likes. But if they're at all interested in story or that kind of thing, it can be really a nice motivation to take a stab at it. And if they need help writing it, one way to do that our daughter's done before, I think she didn't know it was for these challenges, but ever in the past, she can dictate it to you. She could dictate it to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's also motivating in a way that feels, I think, one aspect of this is that it felt different enough from school that it didn't sort of trigger those resistances to school in the way that some other more sort of explicitly academic focused summer camps or activities might be.
Right.
Okay, so our third tip is to continue reading to your dyslexic child. This is something that hopefully does not feel stressful or like school to your child. It's hopefully something you've been doing with your dyslexic child, but if not, it's never too late to start. We wholeheartedly believe that reading to your child is important whether they're dyslexic or not, but it's especially important for your dyslexic child so that as we've discussed in previous episodes, so that they get many of the benefits that they aren't getting because they're not reading as much to themselves, but many of those benefits can be obtained by reading to them. So for example, they can get the same sense of story. They can understand plot and characters and all sort of those aspects, as well as some more, I guess, explicitly focused on more reading skills. Is they can actually gain a lot of vocabulary from hearing it orally, which often people pick up from reading to themselves.
Right. And even sometimes just, sentence structure might be a little more familiar if there's unusual sentence structures used. All of that just provides that familiarity with, with those kinds of things. That does help with other reading.
And also, I want to emphasize that you can read to your child at any age. So this can be from, preschool, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, all the way up through the teenage years. It can still be beneficial.
And one other quick benefit to mention is that there's more of a general exposure to different facts and concepts and ideas that is found in reading that that those who read get the benefit of. And so they can get that just from you reading to them too. And, since we're talking about it being summer, you could even try to make it like a little different in the summer. You could read in a hammock or, do something to make it like sort of summery and fun too.
All right, so our fourth tip is about summer camps. And the tip here is kind of similar to our tip number one, is that they need kind of time that's not explicitly academic focused. So our tip around summer camps is to follow their interests. We really strongly recommend against forcing them into kind of remedial work, summer school, that kind of stuff. Really treat the summer break as a summer break and let them do camps that they're really interested in. So whether that's a sports camp or a nature camp or a pottery camp or humane society camp, something like that, really let them follow their interests, because that's going to both make them more sort of rejuvenated and ready to approach school again with a fresh start in the fall. And also probably make them more likely to be willing to do whatever reading and writing is involved in that particular camp, even if it's not explicitly academic focused. Or perhaps reading instructions on pet care at the Humane Society, or instructions on dog walking, or whatever it is.
Yeah, and so again, just if they're following their interests, that embedded reading is going to feel very natural and exciting to them, and they'll just probably do it naturally as they're at the camp. So we do have a sort of a side tip for camps, though, which is to be really mindful about letting the camp know in advance that your kid is dyslexic, because sometimes we don't think of those embedded reading things that might happen at a non-academic camp, and so it can be really important to let them know, just like school. And the teachers know, because it might prevent instances of embarrassment if they're supposed to be the one who reads something out loud, or getting in trouble, because sometimes it's interpreted as not paying attention or something like that. And so it's really important to let them know ahead of time, and maybe especially important because often camp counselors might be even less aware because they might be teenagers, for example, so it might just not occur to them.
Yeah, or even if they're not teenagers, they're not necessarily as well trained as sort of public or private school teachers are.
Right.
Yeah. All right, our fifth and final tip for today is to look for reading opportunities in the fun summer activities that you are doing anyways. So as you can obviously think of a number of summer activities that your family does, where you can look for direct reading opportunities. But just to give a couple examples of some things that we do, one is going to the farmer's market. So if you're going to the farmer's market, you could employ your child to help you find your list of things that you're looking for. So you can give them a list, and corn and kale or whatever, and they can help find which booths are selling that produce. They can read the signs to figure out what the cost is for different items at those booths, etc.
Yeah, and I think, again, sort of this can just be natural. It's not like you have to make it explicitly a reading activity. I think it's just sort of that you notice it and invite them into the process with you.
Yeah. Other examples quickly, going swimming at the swimming pool or at the beach. They could read, read the safety signs, read the instructions, the no diving, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, and a really fun one is if you're the kind of family who goes to the ice cream shop regularly in the summer, that can be really fun, because who doesn't want to read the different flavors, right? And another fun place that sometimes people go in the summers is to an amusement park or a water park. And there, you can be reading about what height, that someone can be to ride a ride. You can be looking at the map where you see all the different, places where there's the different fun rides. And then even the ride names, it's kind of like a good example of nonsense words and trying to read those.
Yeah, and so I think the general point here is it doesn't have to be forced, it doesn't have to be extensive, but just use whatever opportunity presents itself in whatever fun activity you're already doing, just to give your child that sort of extra little practice.
So hopefully those were some helpful tips for you. We'd love to hear any more tips you have in the comments.
Enjoy your summer, everyone.